coming up.
And all of these different industries, all of these different markets is architecture beats tactics every day of the week. So you don't need to be able to sell like ice to an Eskimo. What you need to be able to do is follow a structure that makes it easy for them to say yes on their buying timeline.
And currently, the way people are, I suppose, trying to sell, if you're just looking to book a meeting, you're only going to be able to speak to the 5% who are in market looking to buy right now. The other 95%, if you connect with some of them, if they're not looking to buy right now, you're not going to be able to collect any of that information at all. So there's a huge waste there. So today, it is very easy for sellers to pull a big list enriched with contact data and to try and make a dial. And if they don't pick up, you just move on to the next account. And you might try that a couple of times. Whereas, Adam, you've always had drilled into you, these are your target accounts. You need to get to a live conversation however you can. And that would even come from you turning up there at their door, right, Adam? Like, even if at the point where, like, even if they didn't pick up your phone, they didn't respond to your LinkedIn message, whatever it was, you would even go to the lengths of like turning up at their door. And I think it's that mentality which got JP thinking, like, what's another way that I can actually get in touch with these people?
George and Adam, welcome.
Kieran, thanks so much for having us.
No worries. It's great to have you guys on. I mean, Adam, you and I, we met at Open Coffee Sydney, and I've been listening a little bit to your podcasts, especially the ones there that you've been sending me, and yeah, it's great to have you guys both on. And this is a conversation I've been wanting to have, and to be honest, you guys are the first episode that I've had for 2026, actually. So it's actually a good thing to do that, and you're also the first guest the first podcast episode I'm having multiple guests on at the same time. So it's actually good for me to sort of expand and change things up a bit for the new year.
Well, we're on behalf of both of us, we're honored.
Thank you for that there. Thank you for that there, Adam. But yeah, it's great to have you guys on. How have you guys been? And yeah, tell us a little bit about you both. And yeah, tell us a little bit about you both.
I'll let you kick off, Adam, with how we've been.
Busy with the book launch. Pretty exciting stuff. Already getting a lot of feedback, a lot of single questions on multiple channels that we're trying to keep up with.
Yep.
From people we don't even know that followed us, which is quite interesting. But I guess when you've got something like that in the market that's substantial, that's a lower barrier to entry for them to obviously purchase, then it starts like a groundswell of those people wanting to talk more about the method, having more access to it instead of obviously going through our school.
Yep.
So that's been pretty exciting. Yeah. And we've had some really good conversations catching up with people in person. People have obviously wanted some of their books signed, which is pretty exciting. I've got terrible handwriting and George is way better than mine. Yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I guess it's a long time coming, having put so much out there on the internet for the both of us for such a long period of time. But now it's all out there kind of set in stone. So yeah, exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I've actually been following some of your stuff, and both of you guys, and some of the posts there that you've been putting out there, Adam, especially with the television cast members of former TV shows. And I think we had a conversation about this via LinkedIn. And I don't know whose idea it was, either George's or yours, Adam, but the fact that, you make it so people can be able to relate to it, to you. So you're able to actually teach them and say to them, you know what, look at it from this guy, I think one of them was Harvey Specter. Harvey does this, and this. If you can take what he does, but look at it from this angle, say in my instance in the startup world, look at it from an entrepreneur's perspective. You can pretend. These are the channels and all that sort of stuff. There, I found it very. I found it as a breath of fresh air, actually, because it also made me engaged in it, and it was very relatable. So I don't know who came up with it, either you or George and all that there, but I got to say now that was I found that very, very relatable.
Well,
I mean, that was Adam. He is a huge sports fan, but also I think when we include actually a chapter on this in the book or a section about how this is all like comes back to first principles thinking and why apply it to so many different scenarios, and it even like exists in nature. And I think we even kind of have a bit of a tongue-in-cheek example of like, you know, how a lion like evaluates and assesses and gets its prey using like the exact same principles of feedback loops and assessing the situation and getting feedback from what's around it. So awesome idea from Adam to like bring it back to those first principles, apply it in other situations, and clearly it's resonating. That's great to hear from a marketing lens, Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, it actually got me thinking from a different. It actually got me thinking. Okay, if I can learn that from, say, Harvey, for me, one of my favorite shows growing up was 24. Like, I loved Jack Bauer, and I always sort of thought, like, okay, what is it that Jack does that I can sort of learn and all that sort of stuff there, and it just sort of got my blood flow, got my juices thinking, and just got me thinking like that there. So I got to say there, Adam, hats off to you there. And also, gents, congratulations on the book for both of you as well. I mean, I know I forgot to say it earlier, but congratulations on the book. It's really good. I haven't had a chance to read it, but from some of the stuff there that Adam has sort of sent me in some of the stuff there that you have told me that you have put in the book. It's, you know, I can understand as to why people are saying, can you sign it, and all that sort of stuff there. So congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you for obviously getting it as intended with those ideas. I guess George gave me the idea, so I can't take all of the credit. Writing the book about 10 different ways over a period of time, but also teaching this as the book covers, over all of these different industries, there's only a small amount of people that would get it the first try. So I'm always constantly thinking, what are the different ways and channels to make it more palatable to meet people where they are, to gain a wider understanding without watering down the fact that we've actually defined a different category. So I thought about it, and I think George will know in our 10,000 a minute chats in WhatsApp, I just thought that if I could make it relatable to like nature, other industries and TV, and recap the best ones of those. So thank you for being a sounding board on that as well, Kieran.
No worries.
That would also then tie together some of the loose ends within the book, which George did an astronomically amazing job with Kevin on how that was structured and how that told the better story, to like link all of those different learnings together so it's palatable to those people. So that's kind of how that happened. And yeah, I'm glad that it resonated. I couldn't meet you with the 24, but I think I did write one on the blacklist.
Yes, that one there is a very good show, actually. The Blacklist. Yes, that is a very good show. So let's actually dive a little bit deep, like not onto the TV shows, because if we would, we'd be here for a few hours. But finding different markets or palatable markets or trying to sell your product. I suppose the big question to which a lot of people always want to try and say is how do you sell? You know, and I think for me, when I hear that, when I hear people when they say how do you sell, it brings me back to the old car salesmen or those old people that go knocking on doors and they try and sell vacuums. But it also brings me to, I think, Wolf of Wall Street of the movie, where they were trying to say, "Sell me this pen," and that was and that's the way how I sort of view as sort of sales. But a lot of people there view it a little bit differently as well. So I suppose I would want to ask you both: is selling, sales, what is it, and then how do you sort of try and get from it, or go from, or not go from it, or get there? But what is sales to begin with? I'll say that first.
I've always been one, and I'm sure that George can jump in, of what he learned from putting our two systems together. He can articulate that far better than what I can. But what I've learned over this career from fashion, fitness, financial advice, FMO space, large contract acquisition, all of these different industries, all of these different markets, is architecture beats tactics every day of the week. So
Okay.
you don't need to be able to sell like ice to an Eskimo. What you need to be able to do is follow a structure that makes it easy for them to say yes on their buying timeline.
Okay.
Probably the best way that we could articulate that. I know that Ken Thomas did a review last night that maybe people haven't seen yet, where he used an analogy where he took that even further, which I thought was amazing, because people have blasted me, as you know, for like 7 years telling me that I'm wrong because they've got vested interests on the internal micro of the tactic. So if we're coming along going, well, actually, if you just follow this blueprint, you can actually win business easier and it's actually more commercially viable. They get a little bit upset because it takes their toys out of the playpen. Probably, I think George will be able to articulate what he got from hearing me the first time explain it in 2023, where we put it all on the table, and it was George that understood the system of what I was doing, maybe even better than what I was. I just knew that it worked.
Okay.
I think to add to that, and I do agree with you, Adam, with the architecture over tactics, and it fundamentally being about understanding buyers' needs and acting in a way that is in accordance with their timeline. I think some of the bad things that have come out of the startup world is the constant need to feel like you have to pressure people to operate on your timeline, when the reality of, if someone has ever worked in a big company or even at any company, there's certain, if it's already an existing category, a piece of a CRM that you already use, there's contract dates, there's budget renewal timelines, there's things that they need, things that they don't need. And I think that the point of sales is to understand that as much as possible. The point of and collect that information, and the point of marketing is for those people that are a good fit for your market, to help sales do that and to help stay top of mind with the right positioning, hitting on the right pains until that person is really ready to buy. And so that's how I think the two work together. And that is, I think, in stark contrast to the narrative out there, which is trying to push people into meetings no matter what, even if they're not in a buying cycle, waiting until the meeting to collect that information that would say someone is qualified to be a good fit for you. And I think that the biggest difference with closed circuit selling, what Adam talks about, is that cataloging first approach, which allows you to call people, speak to them, have a live conversation, not to sell immediately, but just to understand their situation and get permission to circle back at the right time, which is what allows you to be, I think, so much more sustainable as a go-to-market method, rather than massively trying to fill the top of the funnel, trying to push all these people down into conversations that they don't want to have, and then doing that qualification late in the piece and possibly churning straight after.
Yeah. It actually reminds me something there to what my mentor, he always said to me when I went to my first networking event at Open Coffee and in the startup world. He actually said to me, focus on the relationship first and then the business will come later. So it's almost like you're trying to just sort of say, know everything there is to know a little bit about the business, or to say, okay, because as George just said there, they might have contract dates, they might have certain obligations to which they might need to meet. So, and if they've just signed a contract, say from one of your competitors, you're not going to be able to you're not going to ask them for a meeting and get them to sign within the next 6 months. It might be 3 years. So you're better off. So in which case there, you're better off missing them or skipping them, so to speak, because you're basically going to be having a meeting to which no one else, to which is not going to get over a sale, or there's nothing that's going to come from it.
But the one thing that I'd add there, Kieran, is making sure that with that information, information is then spread across your marketing, your product, your sales, your customer success, and your leadership. So that's vital, right? Because if you know when they're going to come in market, then certain actions need to happen. If there's already feedback around what they're using right now and they've got that defines the category, then you also will then know what's going to make it real for them. And then the last point of that is if you've got permission to circle back to them at the right time, you've already front loaded that relationship. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
kind of like what is missed with the existing models, with all of the sales methodologies. You're only concentrating on doing something better after you've got someone on the hook, but that only comes maybe after 2 phone calls to get them into a meeting that they don't want to take, to find they're not qualified, and then they don't even grab all of that information and send it anywhere. So say you've got an SDR and an AE doing those actions, and then the AE or even the senior AE taking that meeting. What's the cost to the business of that inactivity? What's the bottom line cost? So when we find people that push back on our end-to-end method, or what I used to call it end-to-end service delivery or commercial viability, it's only generally people that only come from SDR land that push back, because then they've never actually been in charge or had commercial oversight over marketing, product, sales, customer success, and leadership, and the reporting aspects, right? Because if they did, they'll understand what they're actually suggesting is costing them a whole lot of money to do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like I think what you also said there definitely does, for me, it makes a lot of sense because I do know that with certain meetings as well, is that you have a meeting, they then say, okay, yep, I'll have a look at it. I'll then discuss them with the bosses, and then it then just sort of be one of those things there where it's a lot more easier to sort of, if you have the relationships with the head of the snake, so to speak, and to use an analogy term there, it's a lot more easier from the top down rather than going from the bottom up, as I've also learned there. So it's more so about trying to find. So it's more so about knowing everything there is about basically your market, but also knowing. Would you even say as well, George, about knowing, for example, what your competitors are even doing right and wrong with your product or with their product, for example, so you can sort of look at ways and say, okay, this is working for them, but they're also getting feedback and saying this isn't working for them. Maybe we can improve on this. To then, to as Adam's terms, when we circle back around, that might be the key factor in us getting the sale the next time off them.
100%. And really what it does, it allows your sellers to be the conduit between the market, the reality of the market, what people want, how you are compared to the competition, between the market and your product or service, whatever you do. And it's just this fire hose of information. And currently the way people are, I suppose, trying to sell, if you're just looking to book a meeting, you're only going to be able to speak to the 5% who are in market looking to buy right now. The other 95%, if you connect with some of them, if they're not looking to buy right now, you're not going to be able to collect any of that information at all. So there's a huge waste there. So from the marketing lens, before you enter a new market, you're expanding to a new market, of course you want to do some customer research. And, normally a marketer, at least in my experience, would try to go out there and get some of that intel, or they might go through a research agency to do that. But Adam's method, I think, is so much better because you have frontline sellers calling to collect that information on a per account basis for people who are in your ICP. And so we've had clients that we've worked with who have said to us, look, we have started cataloging, and it's kind of blown their mind in terms of the intelligence that they've gathered. They said, we've spent $5,000 to $10,000 in marketing, not including like the sales touches, just in marketing alone, chasing an account that is within a competitor. And the features that they love of that competitor, we don't offer and aren't on our roadmap. So they realize, okay, this company is actually not a good fit for us. You couldn't have got that information anywhere in any database online. You could only get that information from speaking to them, finding out firsthand. That information that gets fed back to marketing go, okay, this is the wrong fit for us. Let's update our targeting. Let's exclude that company. And hey, product, by the way, we've actually heard this from another 20 companies that could be a good fit for us if we want to add this to our roadmap. And like, that's an example of like how you can use this to see where you sit relative to the competition. to enable your product promotion, placement, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually very interesting. As to how you just sort of said it there, George, because because it's almost sort of like you're trying to sort of say, yep, the business, like this business, even though we probably would want the sale, they're not a good fit for us. So you're almost sort of, in other words, getting rid of getting rid of a potential sale. But it's also, when you look at it, it's almost like the work smarter, not harder sort of aspect of it, where it's like, well, the sale is never going to go through anyway, so why bother actually putting in a bit of 5 meetings, 2 phone calls, all that sort of stuff there. So it's very actually interesting. So Adam, so I know that you sort of said there in regards to I know that George said there about like the methodology. So if you can, or if you want people there to go and purchase the book, can you sort of give just a quick outline in regards to like what would be the sort of methodology of it?
Yeah, sure. So we're always leading with cataloging the market is pillar 1.
Yep.
Segmenting that via timing is pillar 2. Circling back with permission and disbursement of that signal across your marketing, product, customer success, and sales and leadership is number 3. And then architecture over tactics is number 4. So with that in mind, it's basically a business blueprint that has that dispersion for that account intelligence to be dispersed across the company at those points in time with an evergreen motion. So back in the day, if you read the book, I think, what chapter is it? Forgive me for not knowing the exact page.
That's fine. That's fine.
When we started a lot of this in the the mid 2000s, this was actually, we were just capturing this information and putting it in manila folders on fax paper or butcher paper that I had on my desk. Right.
Oh, wow.
So write all this out, put it in this folder, mark the folders with timing. So Kieran's company X, 3 months. And then in 3 months, we would make sure we had something to go back to them within their buying window. Now, you can obviously do that via CRM. You could do that via a ticket. You could do that via a technical request. You could send signals through other versions of CRMs or other frontline SEPs, etc. Right? But that is the golden ticket. That is paramount. If that information goes nowhere between all of those departments that needs to be known, how would we expect each department to be able to deliver, or even like deliver on what's shared, right? So even as far as the product information must be known even to the CEO level, so that they don't think that they're running one way when the company's actually running the other from listening to the market. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been involved in any number of those positions listed in the book, where a lot of the time there's a massive disconnect between not only the market, the people that are speaking to the market, and what the CEO thinks the product team needs to build, right? So if that is not a tight loop, you're kind of in big trouble, because in a lot of cases, not saying anything untoward, but like a lot of cases, a lot of companies will run off of what the CEO wants to build from having not spoken to the market since 1997.
Yeah, that's actually something that, again, sorry for what it looks like on my end and whatnot. It looks like I'm on a bit of a delay, so I'll just turn my camera off for a second. But it seems as though, there we go, we're back to normal. But it seems as though that, like, you are right, especially there when it says there from the CEO, from the CEO's perspective, and even from a founder's perspective. Like if you have, for example, 3 or 4 staff in a startup, for example, and you're trying to get, and you're trying to sort of go with the market, or try and go one way, but the market's telling you the other, you're already fighting an uphill battle. So it's almost like, basically, I don't want to sort of sound like I don't want to use this analogy, but it's almost like you're trying to get, I won't say the word stalkerish, but it's like trying to get as much information as you can, as quickly as possible, on your target markets or on your potential clients. Know as much information as you can, so then that way you find the right angle to sort of sell to them, or whether or not to determine or whether or
If
not to
they're a good fit.
determine if they are the right fit.
Yeah. Well, think of it this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If any part of what George and I are saying is not true,
Yeah.
why do market research companies exist?
That's true. That's definitely true. That's definitely true. I think it's almost like you're essentially it's almost like you're essentially basically saying, and I think you're basically like saying, okay, with market research, you do your own research, but it gives you the better chance to actually succeed in it, because the way how I've always sort of looked at it is if you do it yourself, you actually know a little bit better.
Mhm.
You actually know a little bit better, because that's the way how I always viewed it. You know, that's why when I worked at my previous startup, I always like to try and do the research myself, because at least that way because I could find maybe some minor little details, find some minor little things to put into their emails or something like that there, to be able to help, which, you know, which might have potentially gotten a meeting, or might have potentially helped form that relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. But think of it like, take it a little bit further and look at it this way, Kieran. If you had the best research capability on the planet, so say
Yep.
you've got like play table times the newest tool, and you've built this thing that could give you every possible information imaginable.
Yep.
Versus your superstar BDMs that have face-to-face conversations grabbing this information of exactly what you need. Which one of them is going to win?
I think the face-to-face conversations.
Yeah. So you've got no connection to where you're building that front-loaded rapport to build that connection over time to meet them where they are. So it doesn't matter how good the tools are, you still need to be having that. That needs to be part of the rapport building, right? And that's what seems to be missed. Because effectively, a lot of the tools are trying to build the common sense of what should be collected for first principles to win.
Yep.
They're filling a void of the people that don't want to actually do the work to get there.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. George, I if there's anything there that you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe to provide even more clarity to people in startups. Adam talks about this process of cataloging. Another word that he uses is like validating the market. And for startups, we're all told, right, you need to validate your idea before you go and build your MVP or whatever it is. And then it's often the people that you went and validated the idea with that become your first customers. So for people in startups, think about how much easier was it to go and sell to those people where you approach them not to sell them, but to understand what their current method of doing something is, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what do they pay for it, and can I come back to you when something is built? They've already done that. But then for some reason, when they get past that validation stage, they all of a sudden switch modes in selling to this totally other different method, which is just like trying to book meetings to try and scale as fast as possible and find people who are in market right now. But so many have already experienced how much easier it is to sell that way. And I think what we're proposing, Adam, is you continue to do that and you build feedback loops between your departments as you evolve, so that information actually goes to the right places to make you as connected to what the consumer wants as much as possible.
Yeah. So think about it like this, right? Like in the late 90s, you would hire superstar salespeople that had a Rolodex of connections within your vertical.
Yeah.
Right? Nowadays, we're trying to skip that, whereas we should be going back the other way and getting the people that know how to build rapport in multiple markets with the key decision makers. Now, if it's not right for you this time, Kieran, and I know that we're clearly not the right fit, maybe I can put you in touch with who is. Now, what's going to happen when Kieran then becomes the head of partnerships at the next company that he works at? Kieran comes back, George and Adam, you guys were great when you came to me with Chief Revenue School. We weren't fit right then, but I can see that I've got 200 staff here that do need to know what you guys know. When could we make this happen? Right? That's you've got to be able to not think of everything that needs to be linear. It needs to be at that level all the time. So we need to get back to being able to do like human selling. So once you can do that, you're just servicing the market. So what I used to call that was like be account manager for an account that you don't yet have. You're not selling to anyone. You're just servicing the people.
Yeah.
Need what you have, or if they don't, play it forward to those that do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you said there, George, is absolutely 100% right, because for me, even now, like I'm trying to actually potentially start a business up very, very soon. And even now, like I haven't done a pilot or done much of the MVP yet, but I've been doing a lot of talking with a few people around me and actually asking them what are their thoughts on this and all this here. And a few people actually do like it. And that's kind of where, like, I think for me that actually makes it a lot more easier, that one-to-one. If you're not it's almost like you're not trying to sell. It's almost like you're not trying to just sort of sell the product. You're just trying to bounce the idea off it. But then once you've actually got the product and then trying to sell it, it's almost like it becomes a lot more difficult. So you've almost got to, from George's way is, which I actually kind of like, is think of it how you would at the start, which is don't try to sell it. Ask them for the idea. If they do like it, then they might not be able to purchase it now, but they might be able to purchase it in who knows how long. Might be 6 weeks, might be 6 months. If it's 6 years, and then your business is actually growing pretty well, if your business is still around by then. But yeah, there's something there. And Adam's your way actually reminded me of a film. I think it had Gerard Butler in it, and he was playing as a dad who was in the corporate world, and I think it was trying to get trying to get people hired, so to speak. But then he resigned because his kid was sick. But at the end of the day, he said he did something right at the end, and then once he went off on his own, and when he resigned to be more with his family, that person who he helped at the end actually said, "I've got a lot of staff here, or no, I've got a lot of I'm going to need a lot of staff here. You think you can help me find them?" And that's how it sort of ended. So that was sort of something there. As soon as you sort of said that there, Adam, it actually brought into that mindset of that. And then George, when you actually said there, it really was like that's something there to which was really a lot. I won't say a lot. It's something that I'm able to actually sort of resonate with. So yeah, it's actually very cool. Actually,
love that. And look, from what I said, look, Adam is the absolute master when it comes to finding those entry points and lowering the barrier to conversation. I mean, he's done this for over 24 years across like 12 different industry verticals. So he is unbelievable when it comes to that side of things. But I mean, Adam, finding those ins is really important, isn't it? And that can differ based on the particular client, what you're selling, the industry you're selling into.
Yeah, but so let's just go like high level demo right now.
Yep.
And what you've got to just consider is you're not going to be able to get that information from people necessarily unless they're in procurement, or you inspire them by pumping up their tires a little bit, by getting them to be able to help you to give them that information that's going to benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. So what people miss is they think that people won't give you that information, but it's how they're asking for that information. So
my question to you is, how do you ask then, Adam? How do you ask?
So it could be as simple as like some of the Jeremy Minor stuff. Mm-hmm. Kieran, like, would it be okay, man? Like, if you just like help me for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, just so that I can get George off my back. Would it be like, look, I know that you're with someone right now.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if you just told me what you liked about it?
Yeah, sure then, man. Yeah. I see how you do there. You sort of, you made it, you made it seem very personal, or very like nonchalant. Like it was like something there to which, I don't want to sound like this here, but almost off the record, sort of, so to speak, to put in that sort of terms there. So yeah.
There'll be people that will be really responsive to that on the phone. Some of the people that aren't, they might be able to ask more direct, but like, Kieran, look, we can see that you're XYZ, the best person in your field.
Yep.
Is it okay if you just tell us, would you have a couple of minutes to tell us to answer some questions about your field? It could be as simple as that, right? So that will work in like professional services, finance, stuff like that. It's just how you ask those questions has to be giving them something for it. So Kieran, after you're able to do that, would you also like to see like what everyone else from your industry has said?
Okay.
Would you like to see that in a report, or would you prefer if I call you back and give you that data?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like the way. Yeah, I mean, like, that actually seems actually very, very cool. I mean, like the way as to how you just sort of done it there. But I suppose the way as to how people sort of do it is, or as you've just sort of done it there, is it takes a lot of confidence to sort of get people to sort of do it, and it takes time. So my question to you both is: can anyone be a salesman, or does it have to be a specific, or is there a specific type of person? Because there are sometimes there that are people there that are saying that anyone can be a salesman, but it's also like, but then there are people that say that the good salesman can be are only few and far between. So I want to ask you both: can anybody be a salesman, or is there a specific type of breed?
I think that it will take you back to architecture over tactics.
Yep.
But if you have enough charisma to live the art of the tactic, you're going to be able to push the architecture further.
That actually reminds me of a book that I've actually started reading a little bit, Art of Seduction, a little bit actually, where they were talking about charisma and they were talking about all that there. That as soon as you said that there, that's what I instantly thought, because the charisma, like you got to be able to try and seduce them and lure them essentially, or as the Latin term of it is to lead astray. So you've got to lead them astray into your essential area. So yeah, more so with the architecture, and then if you have a bit of something on there. So yeah, that's actually very
yeah,
cool.
The data will show like a certain amount of people will be responsive to how you ask the question and where you ask it. So tools like we use Humantic can actually disc profile people's LinkedIn profiles from what they say online in multiple places. And then it will tell you pretty much like dominance or steady will generally answer the phone. And everyone else will generally answer those types of questions on LinkedIn, but depending how you ask it. George and I had a lot of success by sending video DMs, but George also had probably the best success I've ever seen by asking that information as just text. So that showed me that where I have never taken some of this before is not only possible, but it's how you ask that type of personality on those channels will do it, as long as what we're asking or the architecture is sound. But that's super interesting because that was almost unexpected, but like it kind of made us double down in the belief of what we've built even more.
Yeah.
We're able to build our whole report on that last year, which would have taken a lot. Anyway, it's super interesting. It's just how you ask them in the right way. But certain personality types will be receptive, depending on how you ask it.
Can I just add to that, Adam, as well?
Yeah.
I mean, we really got inspired on the. Adam has always said, you got to find the channel that suits that person the most. And in particular, we have one person in our cohort who started using LinkedIn and being very direct with his cataloging questions, and ended up cataloging. It was an enterprise deal for them. They said it was for an account that they've been chasing for 2 years with no success. He started cataloging the marketing director on LinkedIn, asking very direct questions about who you're with, what you like, what you don't like. They responded, and that's turned into like a closed one deal for them. Wow. And so when we saw, and it's fantastic, and that's what's awesome about the cohorts too, is like we get to see how people get creative about collecting the catalogs, because like we don't care how it happens as long as it comes from a conversation and people do it. And so that really inspired us, didn't it, Adam, to then double down for those who weren't picking up the phone much, to then go and send those video DMs or text or whatever it is on LinkedIn to catalog them there and there.
Yeah. So to give context, Kieran, in our program versions of our learning library, whether that's self-service, our 8-week online program, or our in-person cohorts, this person from Valencia literally took what we're saying verbatim. So like we've got obviously learning libraries of lessons, and in those lessons, it gives examples of what you need to be able to cover off when you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
which is like a guide, and we'd suggest like you need to be able to get to here, but think of your own way of how you'd ask that. But he actually just took like stone cold exactly what we said, with like not really personalizing it a whole lot, but it really worked for him because he's obviously in a different market with different languages, and it was like very receptive. So that showed us that in Europe you can do that, and people are really responsive to that. I've seen other people doing that in Bosnia as well, which I think is super interesting. Like you could just literally just ask them and they'll tell you. There's another. I've spoken to a couple of people in Serbia and Bosnia that tried to do that as well, and I'm just like, what do you mean? Like that? Yeah. Anyway, it was just
that's actually interesting, because the fact there that like you're able to just go up in like Europe or in Bosnia and basically just talk to them about this sort of stuff here, whereas here in Australia, I know for us, we're very much like to keep our cards close to our chest a lot. So it actually like. I think you are right there, both of you guys, in the fact that the cultural, like the culture, or the way, the different strokes for different folks, and all like there. So it's actually very like honestly, like I'm actually a little bit like mind blown in the fact there that over there in Europe you can ask sort of like all those personal all like those sorts of personal questions. But it goes back, I think, to what I said both to you guys, George and Adam, which was creating that personal relationship first. If you create that personal relationship first with someone, even if you are direct, like if I was to message George and just say to George, XYZ, or if I was to say, "Oh, George, how you been? What's going on, mate? Are you feeling good there, mate?" You might feel a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm forming at the time. But that's the relationship that I'm forming with you, and that where it might begin a little bit. But how I go about it. That I'm a straight shooter. I'm this. I'm that. And but I suppose it's also on the sender's end to sort of say, is he receiving it well? So if I'm sending it to you, George, and if I see that if it looks like your responses are a bit tentative, then does that mean that I would have to change my appearance, or change the way how I go about it, or adjust it, or reword things to make it so that I can't, so to make sure that I'm not full on as much as I am?
Yeah, well, part of the cohorts when we do the live sessions, we obviously ask examples from each of them that are in it, and that gives them the ability to not only hear from us of how we can help them mirror what those ins are, but also the other teams from the other companies in the cohort to hear from each other. So that's like an encouraging environment, which is George's domain and beast. But that's all part of it. It's just the most important part is to obviously lean into those conversations and make sure that they happen. It's super exciting to us. Like we have people coming back that can hit the ground running from listening to George and I on a phone call, or people that have watched our original series coming back now going, "Oh, actually those guys were right. We just copied what they said and it actually worked, and we built our whole book of business." I stopped for many years thinking that I didn't even want to talk about all of the pillars and how to actually put it together. Because I was so scared people would rip off all of the stuff and body of work, because I feel that most of this stuff is obvious.
Yep.
But George can explain better how he was able to convince me of otherwise.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Would love to hear about that there, George.
I mean, look, I was, where I came at this problem was from the marketing lens, and we work with a lot of companies through our marketing program, the incubator, consult with a lot of organizations too. And so I saw the pain that the marketers were feeling, and that main pain was we were constantly being reduced to MQL targets. And that ultimately took time and budget away from doing things that I think marketing really should be doing, which is like making sure that people know you, remember you, like you, trust you, why you're different to your competitors. Like that's where our time, money, and budget should go to, and supporting sales with whatever they need. That's what I think marketing, and of course, product and all that kind of stuff too. But I kept seeing marketers, despite their best intentions, constantly getting reduced to this lead gen function. And I couldn't really work out why, even when we changed like marketing's own internal measurements. And we ultimately realized that it came down to marketing. Marketing got reduced to that function because of how sales were being measured. Sales being measured on meetings booked. They want leads from marketing. They're trying to find the needle in the haystack. Of course, marketing is not actually good at finding out who is in market ready to buy versus who's not. People have built platforms like 6 Sense to try and do that for you. Still waiting to see some really good case studies out of that, because guess what? It's incredibly hard to know, other than talking to the organization, to predict whether someone is in market or not. So that shoveling of MQLs over to sales has just driven the teams further apart, because sales are saying, these are junk. They're wasting my time. No one wants to talk to us. Those that do aren't in market ready to buy right now. And then we realize, and from Adam explaining it to me, that comes down to how sales are measured, and to determine how sales are measured and change that. So it's not just meetings booked. You've got to go above that to sort of the chief revenue officer, commercial manager, and shift away from that. Adam thought that the way sales should be done, the principles that he talks about in closed circuit selling are really obvious. I wasn't seeing that as obvious from the organizations that I'm dealing with. It's not obvious in the at least the bubble or world that I live in. I think a lot of the education and knowledge out there is from big tech, people who are in the VC world with a ton of money, a ton of ramp, and they can burn that. And that information on best practice is trickling down to organizations who can't operate like that and shouldn't. And so I kind of said to Adam, look, I know you think it's obvious. I know you think people are going to steal it. Trust me, they won't. There's still a very big gap between the way people are currently doing things and the way that they need to be doing it. So we jumped on, we recorded, I think, a 4 or 5 part mini series to basically lay out his pillars, how they combined with ours too. And then that was our first sort of stake in the ground of, let's start sharing this with people. And to this day, I mean, there are people who go and read our book and take our stuff and they start implementing it. Fantastic. That's great. Those people were probably never going to they wanted to do it themselves anyway. We're better off putting the education out there, creating that movement. And then we know the people who need a hand implementing or want to go deeper, they're the ones who come back to us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you sort of said there with VC and with the big capital and all that sort of stuff there, that's something there to which even I, I'll put my hand up and say there from one of my previous startups that I was working on, when I was working with someone, I actually even sort of said that, we need a little bit more money so we can put into marketing and all that sort of stuff there, because people sort of didn't know much about the brand, obviously, because it was a startup. So that was something I will put my hand up and I will say, yes, I was a bit of a victim for that there. But you are right there, George. If a business, we'd say, take one of the big 4 banks that's made a couple of $1 billion in profit or whatever, compared to sort of like a startup, their money and their revenue is going to be completely different, and they're going to mean that their marketing and their streamlining of everything is going to be should be completely different, So you should be looking at it, if you are having less money, you should be looking at it even if you have lots of money, you should be looking at it from a more personal one-to-one sort of view there, because I know for myself, for a startup, every dollar counts. You might, you might not be there in 6 weeks' time. You've got to struggle to, you got to keep the lights on. So that's something there to which personally that I, as soon as you said that there, George, it just sort of rang true to my ear there. What was something there to which from your cohort, that it can be from any cohort that you sort of taught, that you guys have learned something or have taken, or as soon as you heard what they did or how they did it, like the one in Bosnia, it could be something completely different that you thought, oh wow, I did not think of that, or made you sort of think a little bit, or even tweak a little bit, or made you just rethink or look at things differently?
Probably. Adam, do you want to share JP's tactic for his reverse town halls? That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So we had obviously one of those people that basically goes on other people's webinars,
Yeah.
and who is in the webinar is the target market. Asks enough questions at the end that they remember who he is. When he goes back to them separately, then he's obviously got them where he needs them to be.
And catalogs them there. So turns up to the webinars, even hosted by people who would be like a good fit for his business, for the business he works in, and the people around it as well. Yeah, and he says no one ever asks Betty questions at question time. He always has really good questions prepared, so people know him, and then he then uses that to go and catalog them.
What that is actually very genius, because then the person at the end of the webinar will actually know and go, oh look, he's actually very engaged. He likes, he was good at the webinar. Can go and have even a talk with him or a meeting with him to try and sound him out, to sort of almost maybe try and get a sale or crossover from his end. But it's almost like the term and Uno reverse sort of spin there, where he's actually getting this. Wow.
Yeah,
that's
pretty sick.
Using someone else's budget to speak to his target market in a controlled setting, and then using that as the in to get the cataloged information for the account intelligence. Like pure genius.
I think that comes from as well, and this is something that Adam always, I think, tries to hammer into me. Today, it is very easy for sellers to pull a big list enriched with contact data and to try and make a dial. And if they don't pick up, you just move on to the next account. And you might try that a couple of times. Whereas, Adam, you've always had drilled into you, these are your target accounts. You need to get to a live conversation however you can. And that would even come from you turning up there at their door, right, Adam? Like, even if at the point where, like, even if they didn't pick up your phone, they didn't respond to your LinkedIn message, whatever it was, you would even go to the lengths of like turning up at their door. And I think it's that mentality which got JP thinking, like, what's another way that I can actually get in touch with these people? And if you don't have that mentality and you're just on to the next, you won't get those catalogs, you won't get that information, and you'll just keep chasing your tail.
Yeah. He's thinking like 6D chess. Where else does that access live? Whereas mostly today's younger generation will just go, I didn't catch Kieran on the first dial. He hung up on me. So they'll just take it out of their CRM.
Yeah.
Whereas what they should have done is they might have called Switch and spoke to accounts receivable and said, hey, I just spoke to Kieran. I got cut off. Could you put me back through?
Yeah.
Like, is it okay? Or is it okay you put me through his mobile? He's in the office today, isn't he? Awesome. I'll just drop something down for him because we've got something sitting here in the office for him. Is that okay? Cool. So now you've found three other ways to get to Kieran, right?
Yeah.
But they won't do that.
Yeah. Or even the method there is what George just sort of said there, as you said there, turn up to their house or turn up to their place of work and just say, hey, look, can I speak with Kieran, or can I speak with Adam or George? Can I speak with them for a second? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that there is actually some very good 6D chess. I actually didn't think like of doing something like, I actually didn't think of something like that. So wow, that's actually really cool. So you've actually sort of stumped me off there a little bit with that one there, because I was actually thinking of something else, but wow. So what is something there to what, if you guys obviously with the cohort and all that, over time, can you sort of see from when you first started it to now, is there any changes or anything there with sort of like, especially like with people, or because I know that generations sort of change. I mean, I know that like I'm nearly 30. I'm 30 next year. For those that are wondering, but I know that people that are younger, that are like in their early 20s, or even people that are a lot more older, the generations are different. So does that also sort of have an effect, George or Adam? Can that have an effect
Well,
in regards to the circuit
yeah.
selling?
Well, no, there's probably a few elements there, right? So one we've got to address in my day, and George laughs every time that I tell these stories. If we didn't go back to all of the contacts or the attempted contacts with updates on per channel per day to our upstream managers, our name would get put on the board in front of the whole company that you haven't done your job. Could you imagine if people did that now? So the difference of that is we would learn in an iron fist, but what that taught us is rep, repeat, get to the right person. Right? So they don't have, as George said earlier, they don't have that mentality. The other part of that, the opposite side of that is the explosion of AI, where companies need to be positioning to make sure that they're cross-threading in multiple places so that they're getting indexed. So to your question, are things changing? In the last 6 months, closed circuit selling, Chief Revenue School, mine and George's names, now recommended next to all the other sales methodologies being a complete practice.
Oh, wow.
Which is helpful, right? I can send you a prompt after the show and you can check. Any choice of AI. Like someone, I think was he in Florida, George? He reckons that it was a marketing trick.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
So I'm like, so you think that George and I are in control of the internet and every platform, do you? Yeah. So there's two things going on, right? So the mentality of those people in seats are a little bit different because we've obviously gone to a society where we are a little bit more. We do a 10th place trophy for people that run around the block.
Yeah.
Which is not helpful for those people's development, but there are some that really want to learn, and those people will accelerate probably faster than what George and I did. The opposite side of that for the companies that aren't recognizing that everything's going to go by search AI, which is going to be similar to what Google AdWords did in 2003, right? If you're not already positioning in front of that now, you're going to find it pretty hard. So eventually, obviously, all of those kids that only use their phones will also use their phones to do all that researching.
Yeah.
Platform. So if that's where you are, you've got to meet them where they are. Just where they are is going to be different. So
it's almost like you're just trying to sort of find a new place to actually try and reach the market, essentially, to try and position yourself in the market at a new spot, because as you sort of said there with Google Ads, I mean, like I even think now, like like take with streaming services now, most or not even really free to air TV. Most people sort of go on like streaming services or like YouTube, or even like they even listen to like their music now either on Spotify or YouTube Music and whatnot. They don't really sort of go to, like they don't really listen much to the radio. I mean, like, I don't know about you guys, but I remember listening to the radio back when I was a kid. They're going all the way over there to school. So nowadays people just plug in their phones and they listen to on Spotify.
Yep. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So because we're now heading just sort of close towards the end of the episode, is there any sort of, obviously before I head to the final segment of it, is there any like final thoughts of it there? Because the way as how you both have, because what I've sort of gotten from this episode here, and I think this is my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway of this so far is basically kind of what my mentor always said to me: you build the relationship and the business will come later. But the way how you guys have sort of explained it to me is like, where do you go to actually try and, you got to go a bit deeper. You've almost got to try and go deeper to find that relationship, essentially. And that's something there. So if there's any other final bits of takeaways that you guys can sort of say, I'm all ears, because I'm like, to be honest, it's actually such a shame that this episode's only going to be about just an hour and a bit, because to be honest, like this could be like a 2, 3, 4 hour sort of thing there. So yeah.
Well, we can come back after you read the book.
Yeah, definitely. I'll even have to try and get you guys into the studio there next time and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if there is any final, bits there to what you guys would want to actually sort of say, or if there is any experiences that you guys have had, even with closed circuit selling, that you guys can actually sort of tell.
Adam, maybe you can get your reflection on. Kieran used the word relationship a fair amount to describe like the process of cataloging. But my concern with that is people are going to have to think that you have to be someone's like friend in order to get that information. Do we need to take it back a step and not say you don't need to build a relationship, but you need to have some kind of rapport?
Yeah. Because
we don't want the barrier to people collecting that catalog information be so high that you're only going to give it to me if you're my friend. When the reality is the information we're trying to collect, and people ask us this all the time, Kieran, the non-believers, they say, why would anyone give you this information? And you go, well, it's actually in their best interests. Because they're responsible for that CRM that they choose and making sure that they get the best deal and the best features for that deal. Like it's their responsibility, and it's going to be their job before the contract comes up to renew what else to review what else is out there.
100%. I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Kieran.
Oh no, I was just about to say, I think that's actually the word that you're actually saying. Build a rapport. That's the word for me, because I think like I've always sort of felt as though that, okay, like building a relationship, a rapport, I think that's probably a better word, a better terminology for it. At least you have a rapport. And I think if you were to, let's even say, like with a partnerships manager, for example, like now that me and George have now met, because this is the first time me and George have met. Adam, you and I, we've met at Open Coffee before. So now that me and George have now just met, if George was a guest now, like if I end up being a guest on George's podcast on his own, hypothetically, there's now that rapport. There's not that full-blown big relationship, but you are right, because the business, they're the ones that are going to have to sign the contracts when the contracts are up. They're the ones that are going to have to make sure that the deals are all done, because, or to make sure that what they signed, whether it was 2-3 years ago, is better now, that they're actually getting a better deal than what they did a few years ago.
We're not the only ones that are suggesting this methodology of calling, right?
Yep.
Just the only ones that have codified it and built a book about how to do it. So you can look at like the recent raise of like Titan X, Joey Gilkey. That came from Phone Ready Leads from Ryan Reisart. He built like a system to basically work out who was going to answer the phone to give selling teams, which would the ability to get into more live conversations. Joey took that to a whole nother level, building it into a technology. But the crux of what they're talking about also suggests that those calls that are more likely to answer the phone, the ones that turn into a follow-up, are the ones that go to the deal.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we're saying. If you build that front-loaded rapport, permission to go back to the people that want to have the live conversation. You're not trying to sell them in the first 10 seconds of the first phone call. They're more likely to give you the information and build that relationship so that you know what the deal would need to look like to get there, right?
Yeah.
They've got a whole heap. They've probably got more data than anyone in the world on that. So we're not the only ones saying this. It's like some mystical unicorn that runs along Coogee Beach. Like, this is factual from the numbers.
Yeah.
People that you build the relationship with and you get permission to circle back, they call them follow-ups.
Yep.
More likely the ones that sign the contracts.
Okay.
So as simple as that.
Yeah, it's almost like, as you just said there, I think about JD, which he was playing 6D chess. It's about playing the long game, making sure that it's like, okay, the long game. So, yeah. Also, you guys also do a podcast as well. I've actually been listening in a little bit, and can I actually say, I think I said this before when we were off air a little bit. There was one episode, the first 30 seconds there, when it was with Colin, and when Colin actually said there, with a sale, if a sale is happening for more than 90 days, they just, like, if they believe it's going to be more than 90 days, that they shift it, that they just sort of say, no, they're not going to touch it. That actually got me actually thinking. I instantly paused it at that moment, because I instantly thought, from a founder's perspective, from a starter's perspective, that is correct, that they would actually stop it from a starter's perspective, because I can understand, because they might not be there day to day. They might not be there in 90 days. But I sort of thought, okay, what if we were to shift the mentality of it? What if we were to say, okay, if the sale is going to be in, say, 100 days, hypothetically, what do I have to, or the way how I would think of it is, what do I have to do to keep myself afloat, or to keep the business afloat, to get to day 100?
Yeah.
so that the sale can actually come through, because so that's the way how I actually sort of thought of it. And I just got to say that was actually listening to a first few of the clips and listening a bit to the podcast. That was actually one of the first things that actually stuck up from me. So I just wanted to say thanks a lot there, Gensby, for that there.
Well, I think that George articulates that even further in the book, because when you're not working on your own urgency, you don't need to create it, right? So if you're working on their buyer timelines and you've got all of these things mapped out, you're literally just going back to the people you've already got permission to go back to.
Okay.
And almost servicing the people that have already said, Kieran, we need you to be X, Y, Z to get there at this time. All you've then got to do is maintain that relationship and then deliver on what you say you're going to do, and you're more than likely going to get the deal.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like the way how you sort of put it there, that makes a lot of sense. And I think also that, if it's in 90 days, you're not going to talk to them. I mean, you might talk to them in day 60 and the days 80 through to 90, but from days 1 to 59, or from days 2 to 59, you're like, well, I've got to make sure I can keep the business afloat, make sure it keeps going, and making sure that I get to day 60 when I'm checking with them. And then from days 61 to 80, keep the business afloat by doing X, Y, Z and meeting up to their standards, to then getting to days 80 to 89 when we're close to closing in the deal. That's the way it's how I think. I think that's sort of the mindset shift that I think a lot of people, if they are looking to sort of sell, and I would like to sort of just quickly know your thoughts on that there, George, the mindset of it, when they're trying to sort of sell, getting into that, when trying to close a sale, particularly for a startup and all that.
Sorry, Kieran, would you mind rephrasing?
Yeah, sorry. What I mean by that there is that the mindset of it is that there needs to, from days, when they're getting close to the days, the shifting of that mindset, instead of thinking if it's going to be more than 90 days, don't, like most people, flick it, but keeping the business afloat until they get to 90 days, especially for a startup, but making sure that they're making sure they're constantly improving and getting from, say, 2 to 60 when they do their next check-in, that they're, doing every little bit each day to sort of get better and better, to get up to the level for when the time does arrive of the sale, that they're literally, like, they literally can't say no.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the only way you get that is by continuing to catalog the market each and every day. So you're building more and more what people want, and you have a bigger list of people who will go back to you so you can meet the requirements and needs with, like, at a price point that they're coming with. And if you've got, if you're a startup and you have VC money behind, as we've already established, VCs are very comfortable with the idea of you validating their market. That's what they want to see. It's one of, like, the core presentation slides anytime you're pitching. So if you come back to them and you go, look, I know that we may only have 90 days runway, but from my initial cataloging, like, most companies' renewal is actually in typically March, and that's actually 100 days away, but they have permission to circle back to all these people. I know exactly what they want, and they're happy for me to come back to them. I mean, it'd be pretty crazy for a VC to turn your lights off then, right? Because that's what we want to see. They want to know that there's a market and that you have an ability to penetrate it.
100%. Just quickly, also, before I head just to the last section, was this question that sort of thought into my mind. If the rapport, if the person there with that comes to the sale is, let's say, resigns. So say if George and say if me and George, if I'm trying to get a sale over there with George, and George resigns in between days 1 to 60 or days 89 to 90, does that start the process back to day one, or does it continue on again from where it is?
That's a good question, because if you've built that rapport properly, what they'll do is they'll come back to you, Kieran, George is actually going to leave, but I'll be handling it from here. Is it okay if we just get up to speed together? So if you haven't built that front end rapport, you're not going to have enough of a relationship with that decision maker for them to bridge that gap for you. And then you'll basically be starting again, which is what's happening with the other approaches, because they're just torching the market, looking for now all the time.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and also because there's also in my opinion that there's all this shifting. So people when they build the rapport, it might not be a person there in a certain aspect. So like they might be saying marketing, oh no, this isn't a marketing thing, it's a CRM thing or whatever. So okay, yeah. So well
And
that there
sorry, if I can just
so
add
go
on
on.
one more thing here, and like depending on how sophisticated you want to get, you could use Firmable or something to set up triggers, right? To see if there's a company that you've already previously cataloged that's in a bucket, and then you have a trigger if they're hiring in a particular department, which might
Okay.
help you to get back on that front foot. But Adam, I also know that like in a lot of your conversations when you're cataloging, you would like make sure you circle back sort of every 6 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
With that key account, like have
Yeah.
a touch point every sort of 6 weeks.
And if you haven't got to like a presentation day, Kieran, to map out what it looks like to work with each other,
Yep.
you would already have extended the catalog to ask like who else needs to be involved in this process?
Okay.
Who,
Okay.
who else is this going to affect? Who are going to be the end users of this product or service?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be mapping that out as you go. Because if you're not, then you're gonna become unstuck.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like that there definitely clears things up because that, to be honest, that question actually just sort of just came to my mind as soon as just came to my mind, and it's actually funny because like when you're getting close to towards the end, when you're trying to wrap things up, you have 5 or 6 new good questions there to which you want to add there. But now that there sort of concludes this part of the episode. Now this is the point here where I just sort of now just allow my previous guests to ask a question to my current guests.
Ooh.
So my previous guest was Stephanie, and Stephanie, hold on, let me just, where was it? The question. So Stephanie allows me ask the question, and I'll ask this to both of you guys: is why does everything you're working towards matter? So that's the question that's the question there that Stephanie asked, and I'll leave that there to you guys. Why does everything you guys are working towards matter?
Do you want to start, Adam, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I think the market's really lost its way with not understanding what first principles in many aspects are. So someone has to do it. Someone has to re-steer the ship. And it might as well be us. Like what we also learnt from speaking to arguably the biggest leaders in the world last year, some of them built the landscape that we currently sit in, and some of that's obviously been changed and bastardized over time. But the biggest thing that we learned is they're just people like you and I, right?
Mm.
So the market puts people on a certain pedestal saying that to do X, Y, Z is impossible. But at the end of the day, someone has to do it. So I guess that's what we're doing.
George, that was a good answer there. Adam, George, your answer?
Look, I agree with Adam, and probably the why does it matter? Maybe like why does it matter to me? I mean, I fell in love with B2B marketing because I just felt it was so fundamentally human. And I really, really loved that it was very, very human. And I felt the more human you could be, the better you would go generally. I feel like big tech has taken a lot of that out and it's tried to scale, which has reduced us all down to dashboards and people to a number in a system. And since coming across Adam and his method, I feel like this is our opportunity to re-inject the human element back into go-to-market, which is desperately needed, where maybe not everything needs to be done at incredible scale. And in my opinion, I think that the timing is pretty much spot on. As AI just lowers the barrier to entry for every product or service, it lowers the barrier to entry for digital communication. And I think people are craving that human element now more than ever when it comes to distinguishing who they choose to work with and who they don't.
I honestly couldn't agree more there, George. Especially especially with the ways how you just sort of said there, as we're heading into an AI, as we're heading into an AI world where everything's online. Like I think nowadays, even especially even with the likes of new technology, people don't really sort of spend much time outside, or they spend a lot more time on their phones. And it really does, it does show back from the earlier years back. You would think, even around in like my childhood where social media wasn't around, people were going out and all the times there. So I actually think it's really good there that, you guys are trying to bring the human element aspect to it. Now, this is the party where I'll let you guys ask my next guest a question. I'm willing to let you guys do a question each, or if you guys have one question there together, it's up to you guys. I'm not fussed. I mean, I'm more than happy to that there. So I'll let you guys ask my next guest the question. What questions?
Ooh. George, do you want me to ask, or are you going to ask?
Yeah, you go ahead and ask, Adam.
Anyone that's followed me a long time, I used to always talk about what's stopping you from getting started. So what we would propose is you ask your next guest what stopped them from getting started sooner.
Oh, that is a good question. That is a very good question. And one there that even me personally would actually feel like saying that there to myself. I say that to myself at sometimes there as well. And yeah, that's a very good question. I actually can't wait to actually sort of talk about that there with my next guest. So yeah, so thank you for that there. Adam, George, great to have you guys on. And Closed Circuit Selling, I'm definitely going to be reading that book. And just even with this conversation, thank you guys again for having this conversation. And for someone there who, me personally, did a little bit of sales when he was at a startup, and I sort of felt a little bit out of my depth or out of my comfort zone a little bit. This here really did sort of help me so much more, and I hope that it does actually help a lot more people there going forward. So, and you guys are welcome back anytime. We've got to do it again there sometime. So thank you guys again for coming on, and that there concludes the end of this episode.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thank you, Kieran.
No